sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado y grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe, en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.
Los sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.
Los sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado y grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe, en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.
Los sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado y grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe, en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.
sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado y grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe, en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.
los sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado y grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues.
minutos. En breve vamos a iniciar.
Buenos días, señores y señoras, ministros y ministras de América Latina y el Caribe. Muchísimas gracias por atender a esta convocatoria de reunión del Programa de Seguridad Alimentaria y Nutricional CELAC de la Comunidad de Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribeños. Es un verdadero honor recibirlos aquí en el histórico y bello Valle de Comayagua. Para dar formalidad al inicio de esta reunión, también saludamos a los representantes de los diferentes organismos internacionales, aliados estratégicos que nos acompañan. Y como decía, para dar un formal inicio a esta importante e histórica reunión, le voy a ceder la palabra a la señora ministra de la Secretaría de Agricultura y Ganadería de Honduras, presidenta pro tempore de la CELAC, la ministra Laura Suazo, a quien les pido un aplauso para empezar esta reunión. Adelante, ministra.
Gracias. Muy buenos días, distinguidas y distinguidos hermanos de Latinoamérica y el Caribe que nos acompañan este día. En primer lugar, quiero expresar un profundo agradecimiento, una gratitud extrema al Creador que nos permite estar hoy reunidos en este espacio tan importante.
Okay, can you hear me? Raise your hand if you can hear me in English. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Raise your hand if you hear me in English. Raise your hand if you hear me in English. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay. At this moment, the ones that are connected right now online virtually, and if you guys are here with us, every day we receive blessings daily, and one of them is the food. Food is what brings up today as representatives of Secretary and Ministry of Agriculture of Latin America and Caribbean, and a big responsibility and important to help, especially we're going to say, put it together, the access and the plan of a great diet, or brothers and sisters. The land provides us the resources that we need so we can give our communities what they need, the food, and guarantee the well-being. We give thanks to the Lord that we can serve each of the countries. The secretaries and the ministers of agriculture are the expression, clear expression of serving public services and worrying public services. We worry there should be enough food, healthy food, unto the world context and situations, and some of them constant, and others all of a sudden they will threat our work or our planned work. Distinguished ambassadors, ministers, delegacies for the countries that are here from the countries of Latin America and Caribbean CELAC. It's a pleasure that today we celebrate and greetings each one of you and all of the ones that we are on the main table. Gerardo Torres, main consular, Mario Lourdes, director, regional director of FAO in Latin America, and our co-worker Colin that represents the Ministry of Sabot of the country of Grenada. And our co-worker Martha from Colombia, that eventually she will come up to be the president and the rest, the ones that accompany her. Each one of you that are here, and by time, I cannot tell you your job or your role. We're thankful, and we have a special greetings to all of you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to get together in this moment. Occasionally, sometimes we share experiences, lessons that we have learned, or at choir during our time of presidency and secure. We're thankful your presence right here and your commitment for this initiative. Today, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to give the word to the representative for our president, Xiomara Castro, who I am a porter. Greetings. Right now, she is, let's say that she's right now working in a national celebration that is here in Honduras because it's the day of our Virgin, Suyapa's Virgin, and right now she's in that activity. That's why she's not present today. So I give the word to Gerardo Torres. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for the welcoming all the ministers of Latin American and the Caribbean. There are 28 states that are represented here today in this meeting, plus the people that are virtual right now. We send them greetings to them. Greetings to Marta Carinos. She is the Minister of Colombia. On behalf of Marta Suazo, today she will be in charge of, she'll be the president right now. Also, it will start the process of transition of this presidency of pro tempore. As we know that Xiomara Castro here in Honduras, we already started the transition to give it to our brothers and sisters of Colombia. Also, a greeting of the representative, Colleen, in name on behalf of the minister, Cesar Saboto from Grenadines. Remember that Honduras and Colombia and San Vicente, we come together and we are CELAC. Also, we are together in other spaces. Also, we want to greet Mario Lubetki of FAO. More than a year, we dream of this, and today we have seen it to reality. I think that's the principle, what we are in the public sector, to make all this reality, that what we dream and what the people dream as well. Being here in the valley of Comayagua, it's something really historic. Here used to be back in the main capital of Honduras, today an historic place here. Also, it's a valley of production that the minister will talk about that later. Talk about all the programs and the projects that have their pilots here in Comayagua, and they have been a center of strategies and experiencing things that the president of Xiomara Castro with her program to come back of agriculture. I was talking to a couple of friends before the meeting was started. Greetings to everyone this morning. I have the responsibility to organize pro tempore under the Eduardo Enrique Reina. Greetings to him. He couldn't be here. Like I said before, under our presidency. Before we start this meeting, Chancellor, here in Honduras, we applied. What we know is the treating of free commerce. It was United States and Central America, the famous ERICAFTA. Like 23 years ago, we started that business, or 20 years, it was already applying to it. In fact, that we didn't protect some of the work or labor. It did it like 20 years of signature and everything came out. Honduras would have lost all the capability of rice. That was the first warning. when Hondurans didn't produce enough rice. It was cheaper to buy rice than producing rice. That was the first warning that was coming up. That happened to beans, then happened with corn. And the international markets, they change. And when all that changes came, Honduras, as we know, we are the sons of corn. We used to buy the corn to the United States because Honduras were not producing corn. And then there was accelerated poverty here. Margins, people were actually really poor. They didn't guarantee their foods on their table. This practically in agriculture came down, and in the rural communities and the communities of the country. It will start showing up, divines and migration as well. So when we come with that capability of production, when Honduras stop producing, stop having jobs out in the fields, and they were just beneficiaries of different type of export, the country was starving, there was nothing on the fields, and people started migrating because the people conclusion of any human being is to migrate when there's nothing on the table. Coming with our president Xiomara Castro and the power, it means to Honduras that is the comeback of agriculture and to understand the free commerce and the markets and to sustain and without not leaving what food it is in here. We have achieved last year for the first in many years, Honduras had enough corn for consuming here nationally in the country. They had enough beans so they can consume here nationally. We're still missing a couple of products. We still have to get back some of the land. Actually, the National Bank of Banadesa is an important piece because the small and the medium producers, they couldn't reach the bank, central bank, but now they have connected a link so they can start producing that. The bonus, the coffee bonus or agriculture, it's an impulse that the president has given and has been a result. Some of the results, the minister will extend more of that. It will reduce more than 30% on the migrating flow in 2024. The data are from Homeland Security from the United States, but we know that's back of that. It's what is sustaining the communities and agriculture capabilities. More than 10% of the poverty and some of the levels of credibility. Too close. Because I don't want to extend into this introduction. Then the minister will speak. Those are the bad hands to talk about this topic. She is the reasons of this meeting, and it will be the main one because the minister, she has been inviting all of you and she knows personally, and the idea is that we all get together and know Honduras is here to attend you. Like the minister said, the president is not here today because she is in the day of the Virgin Suyapa. It's a holiday. Those beliefs, they have been coming up together as people unity. Also, like the religion, also has, they send us to, like 200 years ago, General Morazan. It was part of that process of construction in a Republic of Central America. It will still be that Francisco Morazan will get into the presidency. And that dream of unity of Latin America and Caribbean, a big, like our traditional customs, our beliefs, the ones are Christians, the one evangelical, and all that beliefs, all the spirituality, Latin American and Caribbean, are points that are going to unity, and we see that in our towns, our hometowns, our brothers and sisters. I can just list a series of topics where we do not agree, like Latin American or Caribbean. There's so many topics that we do not agree. But insecurity of food, it's an evidence that we are. And as we see it, the topic of the land, topic about the towns, villages, where they can live a dignified life, just like in Honduras, the agriculture. It's our defense of our resources, of our communities. It's part of the responsibility that you already have in your states, is to guarantee that you need the food and you see you're productive and important productive in your land. We are here on your disposition. We thank the FAO of this. Last year we closed with a couple of parliaments to continue the plan of CELAC. Welcome to the Valley of Comayagua, capital. It used to be the capital of Honduras. Now we developing in the country, start growing. I hope that development in our country and all the countries will come with the generation of richness and progress, and to help the people get out of poverty and guarantee that right of food security. Welcome, thank you. Welcome to Honduras. They will always hug you. Now a good friend of mine in Honduras will start speaking right now. Mario, regional representative of FAO in Latin America and Caribbean. ¿Cuál es? Este, ¿verdad?
Ministra Laura Suazo.
Friend Laura Suazo. Friend Vice Minister of CELAC Gerardo Torres, authority of the government of Honduras that are present here with us. Representatives, Minister of Colombia, of San Vincent, ministers of Latin America and Caribbean. Representative of the private sector and the one academia that are connected with us in the first debate part with us. Colleagues, international cooperation that are all here, associates that we work in different areas. Friends of the media that are here on stream in all Latin America and Caribbean. They're here in the first meeting here in the morning, and you've been following up the process of what CELAC has been living on food security. Distinguished participants, I am pleased to address you at this ministerial meeting almost a year after the approval of the new plan for food security, CELAC, the Caribbean, St. Vincent and Grenadines. 2 months after that, Santiago, Chile, agriculture ministers, they agreed to this document, to these plans of actions that they were giving out of this year. Thank you for the invitation of the government of Honduras and for the pro tempore CELAC. And I think that this encounter will be, like they said, it will be an important space to make it more important, the experience between ministers and high authorities of the different ministers, where we are, what we did, and where we're going to go. After experiences, our own experience are the most important, so we can just treasure as of general value here in Latin America and Caribbean. Do you remember that this process started in 2022? During the meeting of Ministers of Agriculture in Buenos Aires, and attended by that time 17 high-level CELAC authorities laid the groundwork, and we asked them, we can start a process of starting the process of CELAC that right now we're talking about the first year. It's very important to remember the story, that it was not a fact, that it's a process that has a point to achieve and to get to Honduras. We'll have it in a moment. And the process of the presidency of Colombia of CELAC. For the FAO, it has been an honor to follow this process, a process that we haven't done it by ourselves, that we have done it with our strategic associates of BEAD, and always in our naturally of us with PAN and IFA. In January of 2024, we received representatives of CELAC, then in our offices, regional in Santiago of Chile, for a ministerial meeting that it was happening at that moment, St. Vincent and Grenadines. This meeting with the participation between 6 ministers. The CELAC has only 33 ministers. And here it came up more ministers, more than in Santiago. In Santiago was exceptional, the numbers, but not exceptional. But there was a representative of the Caribbean and Latin America. We don't remember other meetings of this high number that we got. In this meeting, probably because we already agreed with it, we found with higher numbers than the numbers of Santiago. And this expressed where we're going to go and what's the position and what action the countries of Latin America and the Caribbeans have. Well, talking the topic, what is food security it is. A couple of days, the offices regional of FAO in Latin America and other 5 United Nations agencies presented our main report on food security and nutrition called Manorama 2024. As you know, the data show that although it's an important region, that it has really bad news, and sometimes the good news are really important. We presented as principle what the data show us in the last 2 years that has been giving a deduction of hunger and food security consecutive, even if the numbers are really low, in reduction. It hasn't given any other part in the world. So we have to consider that daily our work, we lose the perspective where we're going to go, the continent.
Naturally, these signs, because it's not even a tendency, cannot shadow the critical inequalities in these subregions that must provide a strong sensibility for the Caribbean countries that are the most affected in all this process. And then everything about being overweight, especially in children and grown-ups, and we have to consider this. Healthy diets have improved. However, this is in negative terms. America and the Caribbean has the highest cost to guarantee quality of the food when we are one of the biggest producers of food in the world. And also the region, our region, is the second more exposed to extreme climatic effects worldwide, with 74% of the countries being affected. Climatic resilience is a key aspect that we have to strengthen. Our efforts to address policies for food production and strengthen our agro industry is more important than ever if we want to strengthen the region. In CELAC and San CELAC, we're discussing a tangible policy to address policies and strengthen actions looking for 2030 and bringing us closer to the objectives. From FAO, we're going to keep on strengthening each of the countries in this process, strengthening and participating actively in other international actions that relate directly with what we're doing. I think, for example, the Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty that came from Brazil in the last G20 meeting, or the Food and National Nutritional Security Policy of Central America and the Dominican Republic 2012-2032, or the 25 by 25 initiative of the Caribbean community. Plus, in addition, we have made progress in strategic agreements with key entities such as which was discussed last year, with key entities like the Central American Bank for Economic Integration and the National Bank for Economic and Social Development from Brazil, and the Inter-American Development Bank and the Development Bank of Latin America, the CAF, which means it's a qualitative jump in a central aspect, which are the mechanisms of development and financing. We are articulating our technical cooperation with the 4 pillars, which was the base of the plan that we agreed upon. 4 pillars, pillars one and two, of the plan and the alignment with the United Nations Decade of Family Farming, we are making progress in mobilizing resources through initiatives such as Hand in Hand and South-South cooperation programs. During the last World Food Forum that we did in Rome, the region was very well represented. And imagine that, this had not happened before, that chiefs of state and government from Dominican Republic, Cuba, Guyana, Paraguay, Peru, and Barbados, amongst others, intervened in this meeting. In addition, I think it was also important not only to talk about the local plans, but the sub-regional plans that highlight the development in the countries. The investment in the dry corridor, the policies for investments in the Amazons, and the scenarios in the Caribbean focused on irrigation, highlighting the possibility of playing in the World Forum in the regional, sub-regional, and local context that are incorporated and that we have to work with. And finally, in Pillar 4, we have strengthened the collaboration in policy dialogue in management spaces for the resilience and sustainability of agri-food systems through the Climate Action Platform, the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, the REAF from the Mercosur, the Andean Community, and the Integration System for Central America, SICA and CARICOM, amongst others. These are multiple steps forward that we can point out in these synergies. We have definitely given steps forward concretely, tangibly, not only with words, as you know, and in this effort, during the 38th Regional Conference of FAO that we did recently in Guyana, and which is our main conference in the region regionally, the member states, many of you, requested concrete support for the implementation of the CELAC Plan in the frame of the conference and the actions of FAO and its associated organizations. We reaffirm our commitment with the mandate received by the governments, and we are very pleased to share a wide report regarding all of this, if you so wish. In the reduction of hunger and malnourishment in the region is facing historical advancements with regional and globally. This region has shown its potential and shows its potential to become an example of resilience, prosperity, and commitment to global goals to ensure a more just and sustainable future for all. Personally, I have had the privilege of being part of this extraordinary process starting in 2022 that we have built amongst all. But it is clear that this process that will continue now in the hands of our Colombian friends does not belong to one person, not one organization, not one country. It is a collective effort, an opportunity for each of us to contribute to a world without inequalities, without hunger, without poverty, but especially without leaving anyone behind. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mario Redkin for all of the effort done not only for today, but as he has said, with this historical process that we're developing. Thank you also for highlighting the presence of the states. It is for Honduras truly of pride and having the presence of 27 countries here. And I also want to greet the international organisms that accompany us, besides FAO, which is the Organization of the United Nations for Food and Agriculture. We also thank the PMA, we have CEPAL. We also greet our good friends from the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation for Agriculture, IICA, and the support for this meeting with the Inter-American Bank of Development, the integration of the Latin American system, CELA, and also our friends from the Latin American Caribbean Bank of Development, CAF, and to the regional of in OIRSA, the Central American System of Integration, SICA, and CARICOM, and also the Agrarian Council of Central American. I hope I didn't leave anyone behind. In any case, in our next round, we will mention them. Thank you so much for the agreement with Parliamentarians Against Hunger. This meeting would not have been possible. This would not have been possible with these very important partners in the region who are interested in the topic. Redkin has already mentioned that the fight against hunger is a regional priority for President Xiomara Castro. The reduction of poverty must be the main objective of all governments. And to talk about the challenges that we are facing today, we have an important person for this meeting, Máximo Torero, high-level representative, chief economist at FAO, to speak of the regional panorama of food security and nutrition of Latin America and the Caribbean, promoting resiliency, facing climate variability and extreme climate effects for food security and nutrition. Go ahead, Mr. Máximo Tercero.
Muchísimas buenas tardes a todos. No sé si me escuchan bien. ¿Me escuchan bien? ¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan? Por favor, tienen que arreglar la conexión. ¿Aló? ¿Me escuchan?
Máximo, buen día, escuchamos bien.
Ya me escuchan. Ok, muchísimas gracias.
Can you hear me now? Thank you very much. They're saying we have Mr. Máximo Torero. I'm online. Can you hear me? We can hear you, sir. Perfect. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you, and thank you so much for the opportunity of presenting the panorama and regional challenges on food security. Minister Suazo, thank you so much for this opportunity to present the work that we have been developing in terms of food security. Let me begin first by describing the situation we're facing today and where we're at regarding food security. Let's begin with the steps forward of the ODSS and nutrition challenges. What we find, as we know, there is a variety of drivers which are leading the influence process on the nutrition, what we call PUU, the FIES, which is the scale of food security, and the ODS 12. And these are in order conflicts, variability in climate, and extreme changes, economic recessions, and a lack of access to nutritional diets and nutritional foods, and persistent inequality. And this is what they have called, and what is calling us to the world to produce change that might reduce the influence of these elements that are affecting food security. And this is one of the main reasons behind the launching of the Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, the global alliance launched in G20, and FAO being the custody of the support mechanism of this alliance, which will allow better practices to solve these old conflicts. For second year in a row, Latin America and the Caribbean have presented a reduction in the prevalence of hunger and food insecurity, being the only region with this tendency at a world level. However, the differences in the region are important. There's part of the regions that are improving, parts of the region that are not. So besides having steps forward to eradicate hunger and malnutrition with sub-food reductions, there are still important disparities, especially with vulnerable populations such as women and rural communities. The region is still far from fulfilling most of the nutrition objectives with high costs of healthy diets, which have not been able to come down. However, it is a region, if we continue with the tendency, and if we accelerate this process and generalize the subregions that are improving to the whole region, we could still reach these OD2 goal, which is what we're driving for. What is this? What are the steps forwards with OS2? We can see the colors of the different regions. Orange is Latin America and the Caribbean in the last 2-3 years has been coming down. The Caribbean, we see that is not improving, and that there is important consequence behind this, which would happen with COVID-19, which generated economic stress, and also the climatic effects that are affecting them. And Latin America, that has been a bit stable but not improving, and the main source of improvement is happening in South America, the green line, or kind of blue, and you can see in the lower part, and you can see that big drop in terms of the rate of chronic malnourishment. Hunger affected 6.2% of the population, 41 million people, 0.4% less than 2022, 0.7 percentage points, 4.3 million people less than 2021. And as I mentioned, the reduction fundamentally has taken place in South America. If our indicators, however, there are two objectives, which are the prevalence of food insecurity per region, you can see the red line, which would be very close to the nourishment rate, which would call severe insecurity, and the orange line, what we call moderate insecurity, which incorporates severe as well as things like overweightness and malnourishment. You can see once again that the region, the green line on the left, has improved. However, if we see by subregions in Latin America and the Caribbean, we see that although there has been a little improvement, and Mesoamerica has remained the same, the best improvement has been South America. However, it has been stable, which means the region has been a little bit better than the world line. So there's these three dimensions regarding improvements from 2022, 4.5% from South America, the Caribbean by 1.7 percentage points, and Mesoamerica by 0.4. An indicator with which we still have a lot of work to do is the indicator on healthy diet. The region had the highest cost of a healthy diet with $4.56 PPA for that healthy diet, and these are PPA dollars. The Caribbean is sub-region with the highest cost with $5.16 per person per day, followed by South America by $4.29 and Mesoamerica by $4.05 per day. We see a raising of 11.8% in the region compared to 2021. Now, this is a bit inconsistent because in the sense that we have a region that is highly productive of food, including cereals, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, with products of high value in Chile, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. And how is it possible that our healthy diet is so expensive? And here is something we are analyzing with a lot of detail in this year, the SOFI, and the second part, which is the part where they covered specific topics. We're analyzing in detail how this transmission of prices coming lower is not taking place. What is blocking this process? We believe it's central to understand this mechanism of transmission to be able to begin solving these bottlenecks that we find, because we're still, even though there's an improvement in nutrition, the improvement of health insecurity, we are not finding an improvement in this minimum basket for healthy food. So we want to open this black box. We're trying to open this black box and finding the elements behind it. Besides that, we find in this lack of access to healthy diet for 27.7%, that's 182.9 million people could not allow themselves a healthy diet in 2022. That is the green line in South America, yellow is Mesoamerica, and red is the Caribbean. Compared to 2021, this proportion came down in 2.4 percentage points, which is equivalent to 4.3 million more million people, that could not allow themselves a healthy diet. These rates are unacceptable, and we need to find a way to correct these. But there has been an improvement that we find in the case of the reduction of the people who can now access food, and we have to healthy food. We have to keep on working on this. And related to that, we find that the indicators of prevalence and of children, overweight children in 2022 was the most elevated in the region, 8.3% compared to the world estimate of 5.6. This happens regionally and in all those subregions. In 2022, the numbers show that the prevalence and the delay in growth in the region was of 11.5%. This is very significantly lower than the world number of 2020.3. So without concluding being overweight, we see an improvement. In regards of obesity in adults, also almost triplicates world rates. We have a strong problem we have to solve, tied to the costs of healthy diets, the cost of healthy diets. Anemia affected 17.2% of women between the ages of 15 and 49 years of age, much lower than the world average of 29.9%. Now, this is the image we have today. In this image, we must see what is coming and how we might prepare for the changes that we will be facing in the upcoming years. One of the more important changes will be the variability in change, the extreme climate events, and how this will affect nutrition and food security. Climate change is a global problem. It's not a problem in the region per se, it's a problem in the whole world. It's a common good worldwide. This climate change is owned by everyone. We're facing now as a good that has been having an impact on the world and our region. And how will this take place? We will have 5 dimensions of impact. First of all, extreme temperatures. Second, an excess or lack of water. Third, variability in climate variables that make production harsher to make decisions and to understand how it operates what it does.
La movilidad de especies y movilidad
The
de seres
fourth
humanos.
is the movement of species and humans in migration. Right now, where we're facing dangerous and serious, dry running in countries that are affected by the weather change, climate change. And the fourth one is, or the fifth one, I'm sorry, is the evolution of the illness, species illness, and the ones that are going to change according how the climate will change. So we have to be prepared for that. It's a system agriculture that we know that it's improving, but it has a future, really complex future. We know that we have violated a couple of the nine limits on the planet, but that will higher frequency and intense of the climate changes. By the way, our resilience will be central in this topic. The patterns that changes on the climate change variability has actually in the economic will be accelerated. Some countries will be affected, depends on the climate change. And this is what we're trying to talk or study about. I'm going to accelerate what the FAO has been doing globally, and I think that will benefit to the region. The proportion of the countries exposed to 3 or 4 type of different climate change, it actually went 111% on the period of 2003 to 2007, 44% in 2018 to 2022. A country considers affected by the events of climate changes extremes because experiments a change of combination of a high exposure and actually represents a vulnerability associated with the climate. 13 countries consider it in danger of the climate. So the countries that are affected of the variability, you see on the blue part how the climate change or combination or diverse. The first column is just climate change, and the second column is the extreme and economic downturns, and problems of recessions or downloads of turns. The third one is climate extremes and conflicts. The fourth is climate extreme economic downturns and conflict. And the last ones are not affected. So what happens, you see the minimum, it's really low. But also we have 8 countries that are affected of really extreme, and 2 of them, they have the factors and two of them that they have the extreme factors of conflict. And then we have one country that has all the elements, and we have 15 countries that they're not affected. So the countries in the region that are affected by climate change are extreme in prevalence. They went to a 0.8 points, as you guys see on the blue bar on the graph. That happened in 2019. But when it combines with the economy, and then it goes to a 9.2%. That's the fourth bar that you can see, the blue bar on the bar graph. That's where we combine the changes. That's where we have less countries like Haiti. In our case, our situation, our strong situations when we combine climate with recession. So it's the second bar you can see. So now the affected countries of variability change of phenomena and extreme climate change in 2019, 2023, that were affected by climate change. You can observe a higher percent of 1.3 by subregions, the Caribbean, and one prevalence of 3.3%. Mesoamerica 1%, South America 0.8%. As we know in the future, we hope that we'll accelerate more. So this variability, climate variability and phenomena globally will affect us, but it will combine with the other drivers that we already talked about. That are the economic recessions, the conflicts, unless measured in our region, the lack of healthy food, and not agreeing with it. We have to work with all the dimensions and food security, stability, and see actions that will allow us to increase our productions. So that's where we have a good production, have a better quality of what we use, and better nutrition. Be resilient and look for a development of production and productive sustainability, and to have a better environment. And of course, have sustainability in all the elements so we can have and go into those homes that are vulnerable, that we call them a better life. The government finances and the political investment are going to be central in here. But something that we have to do as an effort is to have the finance to put all these measurements of resilience. We have to change our and agriculture. They give us the right to have food. There's no doubt of that. There's no agriculture, and no, we're not going to continue feeding. Of course, we have to improve a lot to accomplish all the goal of S2. I know the productivity and percentage has come down, but we have to accelerate. And that system, agriculture, that completes that of the rights of food security, I know brings up, it affects the grounds, it affects how we use the water, it affects the environment because it just gives emissions, affects the environment. That's where we have the space so we can improve. But if we do not have the right of food, what are we going to improve? So the sector of agro, they have a space that we can improve in production and sustainability without affecting the environment, and to have our grounds again, to have a better use of the water, be more efficient. That's what's going to help to reduce the emissions. That's what's going to help so we can get back and be certified. And because of that, the finance, climate finance, we have to move into agriculture. Today is only 2-3% of all the finances. It comes to agriculture. This doesn't make sense because it's the only sector that has the space to improve and would accelerate the energetic. The other one is having a solution with the private sector. So we have to have that. We have to have that word, that speech, because there's a clearance to solve those issues. Now, it's going to affect our climate variability. Of course, if we have a problem of non-production, we have climate change shocks. They're going to affect the prices. We have baskets are really high. We have to reduce prices. If we have really high costs, it will affect the way of uses of stability as well. So here, people, we have to have policies of how we're going to have that resilience. This is central. And strengthen our resilience of food security. They have two dimensions. One of them is to go ahead, and the other one is to absorb capability of change, transform, and to produce more to less cost, to produce more with less cost of suppliers. So what do we have to
What we need to look for the acceleration to reach for those agriculture and also strengthen the resilience. We need to be more resilient with an integrated focus and also intersectoral and systematic as well. That can promote later the access to renewable resources, their suitability as roads to prevention and also adaptation, and also as a consequence, a better climate resiliency, but also do it in a way that we can also have sustainable programs, because what's relevant for us, it's not just to reach the rights of the foods today, but we want to reach the rights for tomorrow. We want to have a better food quality, have better access to resources today, but also way tomorrow as well. And if we're not careful on how we do this, we will affect the tomorrow. Now, the intervention policies to increase the agrosystems definitely have three fundamental axes. First, policy to address climate resiliency based on the evidence of all the experience from the region as a alert system. We're trying to look forward and adapt, if God's willing, to have what we call also a quarter of a situation room, where we are generating 12 risks. We are also analyzing 12 risks. We also having the skills, those predictive skills. 6 of them are risks that we can assure that won't happen. For example, here we're seeing the extreme temperatures, drought, and also floods, cyclones, hurricanes, inside our non-assurable rings, also conflicts that we have. It's also moving, what's the locus, and also other type of problems that are not today assurable, but definitely can be assured in the future. Here we can see early alert systems with the capability of prediction to attract governments. Indeed, it's an initiative that's been done through the G7, and we hope together to launch this platform that will attract as well the reassuring companies for all those reassurable risks, but also thinking ahead in actions through the prediction and not evaluation, just like it happened. This is what we call emergency and anticipated request. What does this mean? That if we do the FOC, it's an action that can be done after the shock, and there we can also provide a fast response. But we won't have all the capabilities to create a change on a way that could create a resilience. An anticipated request will be done once a situation happens, and the probability that this situation can happen will tell us in an extreme phase that this will happen one way or another, a probability of a 95%, and there we activate all the reassurance, and there we can have an action plan. For example, prepare ourselves for El Niño, La Niña. Most of our country has been affected, and also helping the rivers after all this happens, and not wait that this can happen so that we could do all of these investments. This is revolutionary, ladies and gentlemen, and we believe with this, we can also have this concept of anticipated resiliency, and we're also trying to coordinate this with the banks and with the AFIs so that they also can use it as part of the programs. As well, we also need to have some policies for resilience on the life mediums and the policies and the protection social programs for adaptation in a variability context of climate change phenomena. Here, what we need to do is to increase our services, but at the same time, we also need to see ourselves quite more vulnerable. There's where we have the social programs. And in the social programs, we also have a lot of works ahead with the Alliance Against Hunger, for example, and also poverty. The alliance that indeed it's explained. We also have some commitments of duplicating the social support in the world. Duplicating. We need to find that this could be executed with the best practice possible. That is the famous so-called policy basket of the alliance. And FAO is working and is the host of the support mechanism. They're very enriching opportunities that we cannot lose time. There's true commitments for all of this. But at the same time, we also have to increase our production. We also need to do our production quite more resilient. And for this, we need to work a lot in attacking all those factors, those structural factors that are not only seeing the productivity factor, but as well they're also seeing the consume factor. So this indeed will help us increase the access for better life quality. Here we have, for example, the school meals that are having a very strong effort in trying to do it, replicate, and also, again, the Alliance will play a very fundamental role in all of this. We need to find some food safety guidance, but also we need to change that perception of the demand. FAO is actively working together in what we call from the bottom until the consumer, which is the BACS program. And we're also trying to attract all the indigenous varieties, those ones that have an opportunity, not only see the soils and what they require, but also see the production factor and also see how will this affect the nutrition and also how we can also be more resilient with the climate. Resilience to the climate. And this will indeed help us to also see and change the consume and the behavior of the consumption to more nutritionist diets. Latin America and the Caribbean is trying to implement very important policies to increase the agro-systems that are currently highlighted in this report that I mentioned. We need to find some intervention policies, just like we mentioned, production and supply chain, trying to accelerate the sustainability of the program together, hand to hand, just like was mentioned by the doctor. It is a program that FAO in Latin America has taken a very strong presence, not only intervention of countries, but also region intervention. We also have some intervention in the dry corridor in the Amazonic, in the Caribbean, and we also need to find a way how we can move forward to accelerate the process where focalizes for territorial aspects. What are those net bottles and how we can accelerate? Most of the countries are working hand to hand, and we hope that they can all work hand to hand with us. We need to focus also on the consumers, how we can change that behavior. How we can also use the labeling to reduce those experiences that are also learned in Chile and also being replicated in other countries. We also need to increase also the food context and also think in regions, because the effect that I'll do once I work on my productivity, we know it will affect the climate and also will affect the soils, will affect as well all the emissions, and also will affect the nutrition, and that's why it will affect the health. We need to think in more systematic forms and way, and not only think in silence, because it's something that's not working today. A platform for the SAM 2024 show progress and also in the malnutrition, also with the reduction with the supplement food safety as well during 2 consecutive years, which is not seen worldwide, even though we're still extending important difference in inequalities inside the region, and we need to work to reduce those gaps. Latin America and the Caribbean was the region that registered the highest effects and problems on food safety. We want to work with you folks to reduce the reduction of that food diet. Regarding the food indicators in the Latin American and Caribbean, the decrease of child between 5 and 8 years, we can see compare numbers from the year 2000. The diet has reduced since 2024, and that's overweight and children that are less than 5 years increased in a constant form and way, reaching an 8.6%. That, well, it's above the global number. On the other hand, like we mentioned, the obesity on the adults, it's duplicating in worldwide. Here we also need to work. We just finished a study in FAO that you can download it. It's called SOCO 2024, that we mentioned that the obesity marketing is not right. We are we're food exporters, and yes, we trade and also import products. But there are some situations in the impacts that we need to see and evaluate all of those analysis, which is a true evidence. We also need to see how the countries that they do have an impact, why do they have it, and what a policy we need to apply. That normally will be the islands, because they import most of their food most of the time. But the countries that are the local producers, it shouldn't be the case. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we need to focus ourselves and also break this myth and also try to work seriously in trying to increase the access of food diet. We already know the impacts of the climate change, and we know how this is going to affect us. There is no way that in a short-term period, this won't happen. Now, the solution, we need to do better in our resilience, be more prepared to this. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, we have an opportunity. The region, even though their internal inequality is still in an appropriate path. We need to work together and identify those positive effects. We need to work firmly and strongly to increase the resilience, because if we cannot go back to the negative side. We know that climate change events are going to be accelerated in speed, in frequency, and intensity as well. Like Garcia Marquez mentioned, this is an announced war, an announced death, sorry. We do need to prepare ourselves for all of this. We need to be ready to avoid that this will happen, and for this, we need to produce with science and innovation, with resilience varieties, and also have anticipated situations to identify the climate change and also the shocks that we will be facing, and we need to be prepared. We need to work strongly and firmly to accomplish all of this, and also accomplish, because it's one of the few regions in the world, and probably the only one, that still have the chance to accomplish the SO2. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time.
Muchísimas gracias al señor Máximo Torero Cullen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Máximo Colero Cuna, Chief Economist of FAO, for this topic. And it's 10:23, and now we will jump to a family group picture We will do it over here at the entrance in the stairs and between the family group picture. And also, we're also inviting you to have a small break and try our delicious Honduran coffee. I'm not going to say the best coffee because, of course, I'm going to get into troubles over here, but one of the best coffees in the region. And, well, at least probably one of the first 33 best coffees in the world, at least. There's where we are. Now let's have the group picture. We'll have half an hour and then we'll come back at 11 a.m. to continue with the first session, the first work session. So very good. We now invite you for the group picture.
Los sistemas agroalimentarios que permiten llevar alimentos nutritivos como frutas y hortalizas hasta nuestra mesa están siendo afectados por una serie de factores como la variabilidad del clima y los fenómenos climáticos extremos que pueden aumentar el costo de los alimentos nutritivos y hacer más inasequibles las dietas saludables, contribuyendo a la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición. Estos eventos son cada vez más frecuentes y de mayor intensidad, y alteran el régimen habitual de precipitaciones y temperaturas. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024, publicado por 5 agencias de Naciones Unidas, plantea este como uno de los principales desafíos para lograr la erradicación del hambre y la malnutrición en América Latina y el Caribe. De acuerdo con el informe, 20 países de la región están altamente expuestos a sufrir eventos extremos y 14 están en una situación de vulnerabilidad para enfrentarlos. Estos fenómenos extremos impactan la disponibilidad y el acceso a los alimentos, modifican su utilización y afectan la estabilidad de la seguridad alimentaria. Esto representa una amenaza a los logros obtenidos en los últimos 2 años. En 2023, la inseguridad alimentaria moderado grave se redujo en 6,1 puntos porcentuales en América Latina y el Caribe en comparación a 2021, ubicándose por debajo del promedio mundial. Sin embargo, los datos de los 13 países afectados por eventos climáticos extremos mostraron un aumento promedio del hambre de 1,5 puntos porcentuales entre 2013 y 2022. Esto obliga a mirar los efectos de estos fenómenos desde la perspectiva de la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo que el progreso es frágil y la variabilidad del clima con sus fenómenos extremos llegaron para quedarse. Los nuevos desafíos son multidimensionales, por lo que exigen políticas e intervenciones integrales para la resiliencia de las comunidades y sistemas, para anticipar, prevenir, absorber, adaptar y transformar de manera positiva frente a riesgos que amenazan la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Naciones Unidas realiza un llamado a los países a acelerar las acciones para fortalecer la resiliencia dentro de los sistemas agroalimentarios y salvaguardar el progreso de la región hacia la eliminación del hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas, garantizando al mismo tiempo la sostenibilidad con una mirada de futuro sin dejar a nadie atrás.
¿Sabes cuál es la relación entre los fenómenos climáticos extremos y los alimentos que consumimos? Te explico, esto es Ciencia y Cocina. El Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 es un informe publicado por la FAO que explica la asociación entre la sequía, las inundaciones, las tormentas y otros fenómenos climáticos extremos con nuestra capacidad de acceder a una alimentación saludable. Ante estos fenómenos, cae la productividad del sector agroalimentario, se alteran las cadenas de suministros y los precios suben, al mismo tiempo que los ingresos de las familias se ven afectados. Esto lleva a que algunas personas tengan que reducir la cantidad y calidad de los alimentos que consumen. En muchos casos, los cambios de temperatura y las inundaciones afectan el suministro de agua, afectando la inocuidad de la comida que ingerimos y provocando enfermedades que reducen aún más nuestra capacidad de nutrirnos. En el largo plazo, los fenómenos climáticos extremos pueden influir en la etapa de cultivo de alimentos, afectando el crecimiento de una cosecha o de los animales, lo que impacta la absorción de nutrientes y termina en alimentos de menor calidad nutricional. ¿Y qué podemos hacer? Prevenir. La FAO sugiere que todos podamos estar mejor preparados, privilegiando el consumo de alimentos locales y de temporada. También se puede participar de huertos comunitarios y fomentar el cultivo de cosechas de ciclos cortos en zonas propensas a la sequía, como también implementar sistemas de cosecha en terraza o altura. Estas y otras estrategias para reforzar la resiliencia de los sistemas agroalimentarios y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria se pueden ver en el Panorama Regional de la Seguridad Alimentaria y la Nutrición 2024 en la página de la FAO. Te invitamos a que lo descargues y te informes.